They say that stillness speaks. What does that mean, stillness speaks? Well, let's try it out. Let's try to become still for a moment and see if the stillness speaks to us. So you see, you notice the words and you notice the gaps between the words. I could never understand this before. When I first read Eckhart Tolle, and he said that you need to listen to the gaps between the words, I was like, what is he talking about? What gaps? How can I listen to something that is not there? It does not make sense. But now it sort of does make sense, because it's referring to stillness, it's referring to silence, it's referring to the absence of content. And we can notice that. See, we can notice nothing. And once you make that connection that you can exist in the vacuum of nothingness, you know who you are. Or you can begin to explore who you are. Because now you exist in a vacuum, whereas before you always existed in relation to other objects, ideas, and people. But you can also exist without any content. And this is the awakening process. This is where it begins. It begins by you realizing that there is you and there is everything that is going on. There is the emotions, there's the thoughts, there's the beliefs, there's the personality, there's your story, there's your dreams, there's the material world that you live inside, but then there is also you. There's someone observing all that. There's someone playing your character. And that someone is you. That is who you really are. That is what it means to know yourself. To know yourself does not mean that you know what happened to you in your childhood. It doesn't even mean to know what happened in your past lives. It doesn't mean to know what kind of animal you're inhabiting. All it means is that you know that you are playing that character. That is who you are. You are the player that is playing the character. And at first you might think, it's like, whatever, who cares? It's like, it's not really, it doesn't seem very important. Like, how is that going to make me rich? How is that going to make me have a better life? Well, but continue to stay within that. Continue to stay within that, and you will find that life becomes extremely peaceful, okay? And regardless of what your mind is telling you, this is the ultimate goal, you could say. You see, the mind does not know what it wants. The mind will want different things on different days in a very confusing way, right? It's like, I want this and I want that, and now suddenly you have certain lacks, and now suddenly you have new goals, and things get erased, and new plans are being created. But you have to realize that what you really want is peace. And how do you get peace is by doing this process that I'm talking about here. There's nothing else you can do. Okay, so your back is against the wall, and this is the only option you have. There's nothing else you can do. The only way you can have peace is by realizing who you are, beyond the mind, beyond the beliefs, beyond the thoughts, beyond the emotions, beyond the body. You are none of these things. You are the one observing all that. From one life to another life. Getting to know yourself is that. It's getting to know that. It's not getting to know who you were in your past life. It's not getting to know what happened to your mom when you were in the womb. It's none of those things. It's just who you are right now. That is what you need to know. That is the only thing you have to focus on. And now making the intention on getting to know that which you really are right now, that frees you from all the burdens of your life, from all the pain, from all the discomfort, from all the emotional burden, from all the things you feel like you have to do, and so on. We can talk a little bit about obsessive thinking, because I think that's a very interesting thing to... We can talk about obsession or intuition as well, because there's going to be thoughts that are coming into you again and again. Now, these repetitive thoughts, those are the ones we actually want to investigate. So the random thoughts that are unrepetitive, and just come out of nowhere, we just let them pass by, right? But when we have a repetitive thought, we can look into it, because either it's an invitation to do something, maybe it's the divine whispering something to us, but it could also be some insecurity that you need to overcome, that you need to address. And you can continue going on, just staying present, just continuously getting to know yourself in the present moment. That can work. But what can work even better is if you address these repetitive thoughts and you let them sit in the front of your mind. So if you have a repetitive thought, let it sit. If all the thoughts are like clouds and you have this one blue cloud that just keeps on coming back every 30 minutes, lock in on that one. Let it stay in the front of your mind and ask it, what do you want from me? Are you real? Are you something I should consider? Where do you come from? And is it something that is good for me to follow this thought? Or is it something that makes me feel worse? If it's something that makes you feel bad or worse, you will know right away if it's an insecurity or if it's a divine intervention in your life. And if it's the latter, obviously, you go and you do that thing that you need to do. Maybe it's an invitation for you to start a YouTube channel, right? Maybe it's an invitation for you to go outside for a walk, or to call a certain somebody, or to take a certain action in your life. But if it's some insecurity, if it's some negative thought that keeps coming back every single day, you can ask yourself, why is that occurring? What is that trying to tell me? And you might realize that that comes with, as it usually does, with a lot of emotion. So negative insecurities, negative thoughts, they come with emotion. And we tend to just let these pass because subconsciously we know that if we choose to deal with these negative thoughts, we will have to deal with all the emotions as well. So if you have a certain fearful thought that keeps coming up to the surface, you know that the moment you lock in on it and you focus on it, a lot of emotion, like a volcano, is going to start boiling up inside of you and coming up to the surface. And now suddenly that one fearful thought turns into 100 fearful thoughts, because all of that is something that needs to be processed. You need to let that go. Just like black smog in your body, you need to exhale it. It needs to evaporate from your body. And then the moment you let that evaporate, you notice that now you no longer have that repetitive thought. Now you freed yourself from that. So this is the process when you have these repetitive thoughts. But for the most part, you just let everything pass through you. Now, you might also have repetitive tendencies. You might notice that when you are entering these states of flow that are very pleasant, that feels very life-confirming in a way, when you experience that and you experience that, okay, so now when I get into flow, there's going to be these abruptions, or I get caught back into the mind, or I get these insecurities. Whatever happens, something is interrupting that state of flow. Now, those tendencies, they don't form as thoughts, right? They are just tendencies. However, the tendency is repetitive. Now we can start investigating why that is. Why do you have certain tendencies? Why is it that when you are in a good state of mind, inevitably you will snap out of it eventually? Why is that? And and again, some will say, well, this is just what happens. This is just life. You just continue living on and it's a learning process and so on. But that is not really helping us. What would help us more would be to look into what is going on in that exact moment. What is it that led up to that abruption in your state of flow? Was it something you said prior? Was it something that happened prior? Was it something that you felt prior to that abruption? And, for some people, when they feel very, very good in that state of flow, they will then get interrupted. Internally, something is going to interrupt that process. They're going to snap out of it. Now, why is that? Is that because life just cannot be that good? Is it because you have this belief that is held in the collective conscious or unconscious mind that life just cannot be that good? Life is just not that way. Life is not for you to just be super grateful and thankful and live in an amazing state of flow every single day. That's not what the majority of people believe. And the collective unconscious is like this big ass cloud. It's over the whole world right now. And we can easily tap into that. That's why when you have something like a communist regime, everyone is speaking the same words. They know exactly what to say and what not to say. And these are not people who are necessarily very good in school or very academic, but they know exactly what to say, what not to say. Because we can get into that collective unconsciousness, we can tap into that, we can stay connected to that. And in that, we know that we shouldn't be feeling, right? We shouldn't be feeling good all the time. We shouldn't be doing things out of the ordinary. We shouldn't have moments of silence in interactions between people. There's a lot of shoulds and shouldn'ts in that collective unconscious mind that even, 5-year-olds are starting to get a really good hang of. It's interesting how within these paranormal things that are going on for us humans, we all tend to be very, very aware and connected to the collective unconscious mind, which again is metaphysical, right? It's super metaphysical. You say, well, I'm not spiritual, I'm an atheist, I'm a materialist, but you know exactly how to get into that power grid, into that matrix. So you are spiritual. The least spiritual person is the most spiritual person when it comes to being connected to that dark cloud of unconsciousness. But there's also this other cloud, you could say. There is the authenticity within you, the ever-changingness, which is also recognizable, just like we can recognize the unconscious mind when that is, speaking through people or being expressed through people. We can also see and notice the opposite. We can see when someone is disconnected from the power grid. We can see when someone is being authentic and expressing themselves how they really are. And that is what you really want, right? So now what happens when you snap into or snap out of that and you become your authentic self? And now you get interrupted in that process and you feel how that collective unconscious mind is burdening. It's like falling on you. And the more you express yourself authentically, either in intensity or in duration, the more that collective unconscious mind is weighing on you, the more weird it becomes for you to continue staying authentic, the more weird it becomes for you to continue expressing yourself the way you really are through your work, and the more weird it becomes for you to deny the collective unconscious mind. Because you are going to be a minority. You are not going to be, part of the average in society. You're not going to be someone that, does what everyone else is doing. It's not going to be like that. You are going to be a very different expression of a human being when you choose to express yourself authentically. And, and in the collective mind, again, there are all these negative beliefs. So, you can choose to live by these negative beliefs, but that is gonna be a burden on your soul, right? So you have two choices. Either you're gonna live at the cost of the collective unconscious mind, or at the cost of your own soul. So who would you rather upset? Your true self, who you really are, or a made-up metaphysical cloud that is not even real, that is made out of fear substance? A cloud of fear. Either you honor a cloud of fear that doesn't even really exist, or you honor yourself. That's the choice you have to make. And besides that, let's get back to the question again. So how do you prevent yourself from continuously going back into that fear? Well, you notice that fear, right? Just like the emotions that you notice with certain insecurities, certain repetitive thoughts. Notice the emotions that come in you when you are being in that state of authenticity and flow. What happens then? What kind of emotions come up? And it's usually fear, right? Because of that cloud. So what are you afraid of is something you can ask yourself. Maybe you're afraid of other people's opinions, other people thinking that you're weird, like not fitting into that collective unconscious mind, not fitting into the paradigm, maybe not fitting into society, maybe even being ostracized from your little village, right? Maybe you live inside this little village, and we all have these small villages. Today, these villages are probably more chat groups than they are actual villages. But if you start to express yourself authentically, maybe you will no longer fit into these chat groups online, and maybe they will just choose to say that you are no longer part of the fun. And maybe you're afraid of that. Maybe you're afraid of being alone. Maybe you're afraid that you're the only one out there who's like that. Well, I can assure you that you're not. First of all, you're not the only person who wants to live an authentic life. There's many out there. And in fact, you could even argue that everyone wants to be authentic. No one really wants to be part of that power grid. Just like in the Matrix, where you're like plugged into this machine. No one really wants to be that. But when every once in a while they open their eyes in that little egg container, like in the Matrix, they look around, they're like, oh, everyone else is connected too, and no one seems to mind that. And actually it's also pretty warm and comfortable. So I'm gonna stay a little bit longer. I'm gonna stay for another day or two, And that day or two maybe will change into another lifetime or two, And it's never really a good time to do it, And what's in it for me anyway, you might think, Especially if you've had a very limited experience with being your authentic self, you might think, what's the big deal, Like, I can just live my comfortable life. I can be part of the average. What's wrong with being average? There's nothing wrong with being average. People seem to have a lot of contentment being average. Why would I want something more than that? And it's risky also. Because you might think like, so what do I have? I don't know what I have to gain. I can maybe gain like a 10% improvement in my life. And I can risk losing everything. Yeah, it might not seem like a good deal. But the more you experience your authentic self, the more you realize that this is actually quite amazing. That you would never want to go back, because going back would be a total recession of life. It would be like going from a level 10 to a level 0. So what do you have to gain? It's not 10%, it's more like 10x what you have right now. You could 10x every single part of your life by being more authentic. You could 10x your relationships, your finances, your career satisfaction, your life satisfaction, everything with 10x. And that's an understatement. So you have everything to gain, and now what do you actually have to lose by honoring your true self? Nothing. You have nothing to lose by being your authentic self. The people who will think that you are now being weird for being disconnected from the power grid, they are jealous. They're jealous. Like, imagine that you are now trapped in that little matrix egg. You're being connected here. You can barely open your eyes. And out of the, 100 people around you, you see that someone is like, fuck that shit. They're opening up their little eggshell, breaking free from it, and then going out and going on their own way. And you're like, wow, where are they going? They're going to see what's outside of that. They're going to go on a journey. They're going to go on an adventure. Wow, that's crazy, And I mean, from this perspective, it looks like we're all cheering them. We all want them to succeed, So you see, there's no negative negative emotion about that. But when they come into our proximity, however, when they have been exploring the whole world around these eggshells, and now they come and they knock on the window and they're like, hey, what's up? How are you doing? Now suddenly we are now confronted with their authenticity, because now we look and feel like a caged animal inside that little egg container. And our precious little egos, they want to make us look superior still. No matter what happens to you, your ego is going to try to make you look special, superior, something. Your ego is going to make something good out of it, right? And good does not mean necessarily positive for the ego. Good just means that it has more ground to exist. It has more basis of an existence. Meaning that it could also be expressed as a victim. It could also be expressed as something negative. It's a little bit of a side track right there, but this guy who's just been on a crazy adventure is knocking on the window, and now you look like a caged animal, and you know that they're free. And what are you going to do? What are you going to say? And you might say some things that are not true. And again, 100% of what you will say to someone like that is going to be based in ignorance, because you don't know. You've never been outside of your little eggshell, right? So you don't know what that person has seen, what it's like to be on the other side. You can only speculate. And you might say some negative things, and you might be upset, right? So you might get a feeling of being upset that they're outside, but you're not. You're not consciously processing what's going on here, but you being upset does not have anything to do with them in particular. It's just your own confrontation with the reality of you being a caged animal and other people being free and flourishing outside. That feeling, especially if you're someone who has been living like a caged animal most of your life, you don't have the emotional faculty or the faculty to process these emotions properly. So you will just think that they have something to do with the person in front of you. right? Even though it's just something inside of you, it's just something that is only on your end. But because you don't have the emotional intelligence, you will just think that it has something to do with the people in your proximity, or the people, or the people that other people are being upset about. Okay, so you feel that feeling of anger, of fear, of shame and guilt, and you're not recognizing that it's coming from you, all by you. It's not from someone else. And now you see that everyone else is pointing their finger at, let's just say, some politician or some celebrity or whatever. And then you're like, oh, that's why I feel these things. That's why I feel the shame and the guilt and the fear. It's because of that person. Or maybe it's an event. Maybe it's an event that everyone is talking about. Some negative event. And I was, oh, that's why. It's because of that. Or maybe, you get a notification from your astrology app. The Mars is in retrograde or whatever bullshit. Oh, that's why. That's why I feel bad. That's why I feel negative right now. So you see, you're fooling yourself. Those negative emotions that are boiling up inside of you when being confronted with certain realities around you, those emotions are yours to deal with and only yours, and they're created by yourself. Other people cannot create emotions inside of you. You are a closed capsule when it comes to your emotional world. You can create these emotions and you can let these emotions pass. Now, at the same time, other people can remind you of either the power grid with all the collective fears and all the BS, or other people can remind you of your authentic nature. And you see person A and person B, and you're like, okay, so that's who I really am. Oh, that's so freeing, And you created that yourself. You created that feeling of freedom yourself. They just reminded you. They just pointed the finger at, there it is. And you're like, oh, there it is. You're right. But you went there yourself. Someone else could also remind you of the matrix, the negative power grid. And then you will be like, yeah, okay, and you feel like they're confirming your emotions and your beliefs, right? You're like, you feel heard. You feel heard because now you're in the herd again. And you're like, oh, they're just like you. Oh, wow. And you feel like that and everyone else feels like that. Oh, man, like, it's so good to be part of everyone else again. It's such a comfortable place to be. Oh, wow, I don't have to think anymore, and everyone else is validating my feelings and emotions, and what a relaxing sensation also. Thank you for the talk, you say to the other sheep. But what you're really thanking them for is a reminder, right? They're just reminding you, They're like, yeah, remember, there's this cloud of fear and negativity, and at any moment you can just connect to that. You know it, just like you know your own back pocket. It's right there. It's always within an arm's reach. Thank you for reminding me. Now I can feel uncomfortable and fearful, and feel validated for it, or I can feel authentic, right? And the more you go through these cycles of, of misery, which what it really is, in contrast to being authentic, the more you recognize these things on your own. The less you need other people to remind you of these things, because now the feelings and the energetic frequency that you're experiencing is the reminder that you need. You just know, okay, so low frequency means I need to disconnect from the power grid. A high frequency means that I'm more in my authentic nature. And you go through 100 or 1,000 of these iterations, and eventually you know exactly when you are either one or the other. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.